Well, if we could all be seated. I know we can all be seated. Okay. So welcome to Ohav Shalom Messianic congregation. We are one of almost 1,000 Messianic congregations worldwide. They are something new, but something old. If we turn the clock back 2,000 years, we would find that the congregations, the new covenant congregations, consisted of both Jews and Gentiles, and getting along fine. And then initially, it was thought that this would be something strictly a Jewish sect. But came the question, can the Gentiles come in? And so during the ensuing years, there were sanctions that Jews need to stop being Jews, and those sanctions came on in the 3rd century, and got stronger from there. But all the time, from the 1st through the 3rd century, there was a growing number of Gentiles, and in time, the whole movement was made up of almost entirely of Gentiles. Gentiles means nations. From God's point of view, there are only 2 categories. In the Bible, you are either from Israel or you are from the nations. Now, what's happened is, over time, is the term Gentiles has come to mean as a negative connotation. It's almost like calling somebody a heathen. So there's a cringe element. We cringe a little bit at having to use the term Gentiles. So the whole thing eventuated to where the Gentiles were running things and setting things up and establishing doctrine, and the similar thing was happening on the Jewish side. The Jewish establishment did not want people to be exposed to Christian doctrine. So they began to make up some Jewish rules where to keep their fold from hearing something that wasn't conducive to their cause. So we had an increased polarization, a pulling apart, and so it went on for 2,000 years. And it kind of had to be, because otherwise, how would the nations have come to the faith? If the overall plan is and was and is that every knee should bow and every tongue should confess. So there's 8 billion people on the planet. It would take about 2,000 years to get things spread around to people all over the earth. And so that has taken place. But God has made promises to Israel, promises of being regathered, promises of a pure language being restored, promises that God would make them plenteous and prosperous. And there were a lot of outstanding promises to the Jewish people. But during the 2000 intervening period, it was assumed that that could never happen for Israel. It could never happen. After all, how would you gather all of these people. I mean, if you're in the year 1700, you say, well, they'd have to get on ships, and who could coordinate such a thing? It was inconceivable that there should be radio and television and air travel, etc. But nevertheless, as we come down to the end of the age, God is making those promises happen. And it's like this Messianic Jewish thing that we're a part of is, it's like a barometer of the end times. And so as we come closer and closer to the very end of the age, we can expect that Israel would be increasing, that God's promises would be fulfilled with even greater intensity than what they are today. And that would mean that, well, Ezekiel 39:28 says, I'll not leave any of the Jews in the countries anymore. There will come a time where we'll be able to look back. Maybe that's 50 years from now, maybe it's 100 years from now, maybe it's 200 years from now. We'll be able to look back and say that prophecy was fulfilled. I'll not leave any of the Jews in the countries anymore. So that's the end of what's going to happen. So the Jews will all be back in the land. Anybody who's still left being a Jew will be living in Israel. That'll be the general case. So God's got to make room. Got to make room. Where's he going to make room for all of this? Well, the eventual borders will reach to the river Euphrates. That is the border with Turkey and runs through Iraq. And as we discussed 2 weeks ago, this war presently in Israel may be the war spoken of in Isaiah 11. The war in Isaiah 11 is not the same war as Armageddon. It is not a nuclear war. In Isaiah 11, it does speak about that we will go and overcome them to the west. The west is Gaza. But later in the chapter, it talks about also that Egypt will be and Syria and the ancient peoples of Ammon, Moab, and Edom will be overcome to the east. So we may actually be in a situation of more than just tidying up in Gaza. If we are in Isaiah 11, which we might be, this is going to expand in all directions, And that chapter says it will happen in the days of Yeshua. In the days of Yeshua, that the Lord our righteousness will oversee all of this. So we're on the alert. We can see that if this is a correct theory, that we're in the midst of Isaiah 11, we can watch and say, aha, it's being fulfilled. It's being fulfilled. It's being more than fulfilled. It's happening. Okay? So we're kind of like, we got the inside dope. We got the inside dope. And we're going to hear more about this today. Going to hear more about this today. Because while the war is going on for the last 3 weeks or so, we have been talking about Israel because there are things that are in the Bible that would add to our understanding of what's going on today. I just wish somebody would speak them out of the Bible to whatever channel you're watching. And it's really surprising that somehow these things, which are very obvious and have been around for thousands of years, aren't spoken about. So we're going to go on with our services, but let's keep our eyes on Israel. It's the key. It's the key to everything going on geopolitically. God is moving the pieces on his chessboard. So we usually start our services by welcoming the people and by having the blowing of the shofar. We can get our shofar blowers forward. Numbers 10 says to call to assembly with the blowing of the shofar. Please rise.
Yeah, so's Hanukkah. I had to think of something. I was saying. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kedeshanu hayamdam Yeshua HaMashiach, v'tzivanu l'shema kol shofar. Amen. Blessed art thou, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us with the blood of Yeshua HaMashiach, and has instructed us to hear the call of the shofar. Amen. Get the oxygen tanks out. You'll all remain standing and join me in the Shema and the V'ahavta. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kivod, Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Blessed be his glorious name, whose kingdom is forever and ever. Amen. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, b'chol levecha, u'b'chol nafshecha, v'chol miodecha. V'hayu hadvarim ha'ele, asher anochi mitzvacha, Hayom al levavecha, v'shinantam levanecha, v'dibarta bam, v'shiftecha b'veitecha, u'v'leftecha v'derech, u'shofecha uv'kumecha, u'shavtam le'ot ayadecha, v'hayu letofot b'neinecha, u'v'tavtam al mezuzot beitecha, u'v'sharecha. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. These words which I command you this day shall be upon your heart. Teach them diligently to your children. Speak of them when you're sitting in your house, when you're on the road, when you're lying down, and when you're rising up. You shall bind them for a sign upon your hands, and they shall be a symbol between your eyes. Write them on the doorposts of your house and upon your gates. V'ahavta l'recha kamocha, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Amen. Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach. Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam va'ed. Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar bana mikol ha'amin, v'natan lanu et terato. Baruch atah Adonai, notein haTorah. Amen. Bless the Lord, the Blessed One. Blessed is the Lord, the Blessed One, for all eternity. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, has chosen us from among the nations and has given us his Torah. Blessed are you, O Lord, giver of the Torah. Amen.
Good morning. Shabbat Shalom. So last week, well, let me start with today's readings. Torah readings are from Genesis 25:19 through 28:9. So in last week, we were at the beginning of chapter 25, and we heard of Abraham's final days, his passing at the age of 175, of Ishmael's family line of 12 sons, and his passing at 137. Chapter 25 continues with Isaac praying to the Lord to bless his wife Rebekah as she's barren. The Lord heard his prayer, and she conceived twins. In verse 23, the Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 peoples are within you to be separated. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger. The firstborn was Esau, and the second who came out grasping the heel of Esau was named Jacob. Isaac loved Esau, but Rebekah loved Jacob. In verse 27, the boys grew up, and Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the open country, while Jacob was content to stay at the home among the tents. One day Esau returned from hunting and was famished. He asked Jacob for some of the red stew, and Jacob replied, "First sell me your birthright." Esau, believing he was about to starve, conceded. Verse 34, then Jacob gave Esau some bread and some lentil stew. He ate and drank, then he got up and left. So Esau despised his birthright. Chapter 26, there's a famine in Canaan. God tells Isaac not to go to Egypt, but to stay in the land promised to Abraham. And his offspring will be multiplied like the stars in the heaven, and through them the nations of the world will be blessed. Isaac is concerned that the men of the land will kill him and take his wife Rebekah because she was attractive in appearance. So he told him she was his sister. Abimelech, this all sound familiar? This is chapter 20 with his father Abraham. Abimelech discovers that Rebekah is actually his wife and rebukes Isaac for endangering his people. In verse 11, so Abimelech gave orders to all the people. Anyone who harms this man or his wife shall surely be put to death. So Isaac goes about planting and reaping 100-fold, increasing his livestock, becomes the envy of the Philistines, to the point that Abimelech tells him in verse 16, to move away from us, you have become too powerful for us. Isaac moves on and encamps in the valley of Gerar. His servants dig a well, and the locals bicker over it, saying it belongs to them. He moves on, digs another, same result, so he moves on again. And on the third attempt, the herdsmen left him alone to flourish in the land. He then moves to Beersheba and erects an altar to the Lord. Abimelech recognizes that the Lord has blessed Isaac and proposes a treaty with him. In agreement, Isaac prepares a feast for them in the morning. They make an oath and depart peacefully. Chapter 26 ends with Esau marrying 2 Hittite women. In verse 35, they were a source of grief among Isaac and Rebekah. Chapter 27. Now Isaac was growing older and blind, and he knew his days were coming to an end. He told his son Esau to go hunting and prepare a meal for him, because he wanted to bestow his blessing on him before he passed. Rebekah overhears this conversation, calls Jacob, and devises a plan to deceive Isaac. She tells Jacob to collect 2 young goats, and she would prepare them the way his father liked. He could take the meal to Isaac dressed in Esau's clothes and use some of the goat skins on his hands and his neck, because Esau was hairy. Jacob brings the meal in, and when he asks who he is, in verse 19, Jacob said to his father, I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told. Please sit up and eat some of my game, so you may give me my blessing. Isaac asked him how he was able to hunt and catch the game so quickly. He asked for him to approach so that he may feel him. Upon touching his hands, he says in verse 22, the voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau. Isaac asks again, are you really my son Esau? To which Jacob replies, I am. Contented that it's Esau, Isaac proceeds to bless Jacob with prosperity and declares that he will lord over his brothers. And just as soon as Jacob leaves, Esau returns from his hunt, prepares a meal for his father. Isaac trembles violently when he finds out he's been duped and tells Esau he's already given away his greatest blessing. Verse 34, when Esau heard his father's words, he burst out with a loud and bitter cry and said to his father, bless me too, my father. Isaac blessed Esau, but told him he would be his brother's servant. So Esau plans to kill Jacob after his father's passing, so Rebekah tells him to move